Okay, let's go.
He never runs out of stories.
We've told some of them, but they haven't aired.
Yeah, we can't tell all of them.
When Alaskan Bush People first aired on May 6, 2014, no one imagined how deeply it would reshape the reality TV landscape. The show followed Billy and Amy Brown and their 7 children as they carved out an existence in one of the most remote and unforgiving places in the United States. Unlike most reality series focused on glamour or comfort, this show thrived on hardship. No electricity, limited food, and survival hinging on teamwork and resilience. Each episode showcased both the beauty and brutality of wilderness living. Audiences tuned in not just for the adventure, but for the Browns themselves, a family that chose to live differently and reminded viewers what it meant to survive by grit and determination. For 12 seasons, the series captured danger, humor, love, and heartbreak, until its sudden halt left fans longing for answers. What happened to the family after the cameras stopped rolling? Which members carried on the legacy, and which suffered tragic fates? Billy Brown, the patriarch who wouldn't leave the mountains. Billy Brown was the anchor of Alaskan Bush People, the man whose vision and determination carried his family into the wilderness and onto television screens around the world. Born in Fort Worth, Texas, on December 3, 1952, Billy's early years were lived in comfort in a middle-class neighborhood. Yet his world changed forever at 16 when a tragic plane crash claimed the lives of his parents and sister. Suddenly orphaned, he was not only grieving, but also forced into emancipation, legally cut off from the family fortune that could have offered stability. With little more than his instincts and resilience, Billy began to chart his own path. He wandered, worked, and survived until finding his calling in the rugged wilds of Alaska, where the hardships of life seemed to mirror his own inner strength. It was there that he met Ami, the woman who became his partner in both love and survival, and together they raised 7 children: Matt, Joshua, Bear, Gabe, Noah, Snowbird, and Rain. Billy's dream was simple in theory, yet grueling in practice: to live off the land, to prove that family could thrive even when stripped of modern conveniences. It was this ethos that caught the attention of Discovery Channel, leading to Alaskan Bush People, a series that ran for 12 seasons and transformed the Browns into household names. On screen, Billy was the grizzled leader, the mountain man who refused compromise, guiding his children through hunts, builds, and survival challenges. Off-screen, however, his health was in steady decline. By 2019, he was dealing with a serious heart condition that made breathing increasingly difficult. Doctors warned that the high altitude of the Washington Mountains, where the family now lived, was endangering him, urging him to move to lower ground. Billy refused. True to his mountain spirit, he declared he would rather die in the place he loved than live elsewhere. On February 7, 2021, Billy suffered a fatal seizure at the age of 68. His sudden death devastated the Browns, particularly Ami and their younger children who were still at home. Fans grieved as well, having watched him for years embody resilience and family loyalty. Yet even in death, Billy's voice continued to guide his children. Bam Bam reflected on the show, "Dad always told us one day we would have to carry on without him, but we weren't ready for him to go." Billy's passing marked the end of an era, but his vision, of family united by wilderness and hardship, remains the heartbeat of the Browns' story. Amber Branson, a niece gone. Too soon. Not every member of the Brown family appeared regularly on Alaskan Bush People, but those who did left lasting impressions. Among them was Amber Branson, Ami's niece, who made appearances in the early seasons. Amber was born in Wichita Falls, Texas, on February 8, 1976, and those who knew her described her as a kind, generous soul with a calm demeanor and a heart big enough to welcome everyone. Viewers glimpsed her warmth in the moments she shared with the Browns on screen, but away from television, she lived a life filled with both love and hardship. Amber married Sean Austin, and together they had 2 children, Braden and Jace. But the marriage eventually ended, leaving her to navigate challenges on her own. In her later years, Amber faced difficulties with mental health, and like many who struggle quietly, she turned to substances as a coping mechanism. Despite efforts to manage her struggles, she endured periods of relapse. In April 2020, tragedy struck when a fire broke out at her home in Hudson Oaks, Texas. Amber suffered severe burns covering the majority of her body. When first responders arrived, she reportedly admitted to them that the fire was self-inflicted, describing it as a faith test. Though rushed to a Dallas hospital and placed in a burn center, doctors determined her injuries were non-survivable. With her family's agreement, she was removed from life support and passed away on May 1, 2020, at just 44 years old. Her death was devastating to Amy and the entire Brown family, who remembered her as someone who radiated kindness despite her private battles. Friends and relatives spoke of her generosity, her big heart, and the love she showed even in the most difficult times. For fans, Amber's passing was a sobering reminder that behind the intrigue of the show were real people facing real struggles, some of which remained invisible until it was too late. She is remembered with love by her family, her children, and those who saw her as more than a relative of the Browns, but as a gentle soul in her own right. Bear Brown, From Adventure to Adversity. If there was one Brown child who embodied energy and eccentricity, it was Bear Brown. Born Solomon, Isaiah Freedom. Brown on June 10, 1987, Bear was raised in the Alaskan bush. But unlike some of his siblings who leaned toward quiet resilience, Bear embraced a flair for the extreme. Known on the show as the King of Extreme, he often sprinted on all fours, climbed trees with the agility of an animal, and howled at the moon as if to prove that wilderness was not just a home, but an identity. Fans loved his exuberance and unique spirit, qualities that made him unforgettable in every episode. In 2018, Bear met Raven Adams at his brother Noah's wedding. Their connection was instant, and by 2019, they were in a relationship that quickly grew serious. They welcomed a son, River, in March 2020, and Bear often spoke publicly about how fatherhood had changed him, giving him a deeper purpose. Yet life off-camera presented challenges. In March 2022, Bear was arrested after an argument with Raven escalated into a domestic dispute. He was taken into custody in Okanogan County, Washington, and spent the weekend in jail before being released without bond. Importantly, police confirmed he had no alcohol or drugs in his system, and later reports clarified there was no evidence of choking or strangulation, charges that had initially been speculated about. In April 2022, Bear accepted a plea agreement, and the case closed without further escalation. Since then, Bear has worked to rebuild his life with Raven and River, focusing on being a responsible father and supportive partner. Today, the small family lives quietly near the Browns Ranch property in Washington, far from the chaos of the courtroom. For fans, Bear's journey reflects the duality of youth and maturity, how the same person who once climbed trees for fun now seeks stability for his child. His story is also a reminder that mistakes, while painful, can become turning points that lead to growth, humility, and resilience. Joshua Bam Bam. Brown, the thinker and the engineer. Joshua Brown, born September 18, 1984, is the second oldest of the Brown siblings, and one of the most distinctive personalities in the family. Known affectionately as Bam Bam, he earned the nickname in childhood for running headfirst into walls like a cartoon character. But behind the humorous moniker lay a quiet, thoughtful man, whose analytical skills often proved invaluable. On Alaskan Bush People, Bam Bam was the problem solver, the one who gravitated toward electronics, construction, and mechanical challenges. While others brought brute force or high energy, Joshua brought calculation and precision, finding solutions that helped the family survive in the bush. Fans appreciated his quiet determination and saw him as the engineer of the family's survival projects. In 2016, Bam Bam's life changed when he began dating Allison Kagan, a producer on the show. Their relationship blossomed, and in time, Joshua stepped back from the cameras to focus on his personal life with her. While his absence disappointed some fans, it underscored his independence and desire to carve out a private identity beyond reality television. His story, however, was also tied to one of the Browns' biggest controversies. In 2014, the state of Alaska charged Billy, Amy, and several of their children, including Joshua, with fraud related to residency claims on Alaska Permanent Fund dividend applications. The family had claimed they lived in Alaska full-time between 2011 and 2013, but prosecutors alleged that they had spent significant time outside the state. To resolve the case, Billy and Joshua accepted a plea deal in 2015. Both pled guilty to a misdemeanor count of unsworn falsification, returned improperly received funds, paid fines, and completed community service. They also served short jail terms in Alaska. For Joshua, it was a humbling experience, one that he rarely speaks about publicly, but that clearly influenced his decision to step back from the spotlight. Today, Joshua continues to pursue personal projects, including photography, renewable energy, and creative tinkering. His social media posts reveal a man who values thoughtfulness, technology, and love, traits that distinguish him from his more flamboyant siblings. Bam Bam's story is one of quiet perseverance, choosing growth and reflection over spectacle. Rain Brown, the youngest, faces scrutiny. Raindrop. Rain Brown, the youngest of the family, has perhaps faced the most scrutiny as she transitioned from childhood to adulthood under the public eye. Born in Hoona, Alaska, Rain was just a little girl when Alaskan Bush People began in 2014, and viewers watched her grow up in real time. Fans remember her as a curious, outspoken child who loved animals, fashion, and mystery novels, particularly the Nancy Drew series. Her youthful curiosity made her relatable, while her bright personality gave her a unique role in the family dynamic. Yet being the youngest also meant facing criticism and rumors. In January 2023, Rain joined TikTok, only to have her account briefly suspended after the platform mistakenly believed it was impersonating someone else. She resolved the issue, but it highlighted how easily her every move online was magnified. Later, when fans noticed a ring on her finger in Instagram photos, speculation about an engagement erupted. By 2024, Rain confirmed that she was in a relationship with Josiah Lorton, a chef she had met while working as a waitress. Their romance blossomed quickly, and in January 2025, they married. Rain celebrated the union with emotional posts describing Josiah as her hero, protector, and home, expressing gratitude for finding love so young. Yet only months later, Rain and Josiah were thrust into controversy. In mid-2025, the couple was arrested in Washington on charges of burglary and malicious mischief related to accusations from Josiah's uncle, who alleged valuables, including cash, gold, and firearms, had gone missing from his property. Court documents suggested video evidence placed them on the property, though both Rain and Josiah pleaded not guilty. They were held briefly in Okanagan County Jail before being released without bail. Rain later addressed the situation on Instagram, quoting scripture, "Judge not, lest ye be judged," and writing, "It hurts my heart that lies are believed without hearing my side of the story." As of now, the case remains unresolved, but Rain and Josiah live quietly while awaiting court proceedings. For fans, the episode was a stark reminder of how fame can complicate young lives and how easily public perception can shift. Still, many supporters continue to send messages of love and encouragement, remembering the curious little girl they watched grow into adulthood. Accusations against the show. From the beginning, Alaskan Bush People was marketed as a daring experiment in survival. A family of 9 forging a life in the wilderness, building cabins from scratch, hunting and fishing for food, and living far removed from the conveniences of modern life. To audiences across the globe, the idea was intoxicating. Yet, almost as soon as the Browns became household names, accusations followed. Some Alaskan locals argued that the series misrepresented their way of life, exaggerating hardships for the sake of drama. Rumors circulated that the family spent far more time in comfortable accommodations off-camera than the show suggested. Former neighbors claimed the Browns often retreated to hotels or rental homes during filming breaks, raising questions about whether their rugged image was entirely authentic. Critics also pointed to editing choices by Discovery Channel, suggesting that certain challenges were heightened in post-production to make the Browns appear more desperate or isolated than they truly were. Sequences of frantic hunts or frantic food shortages, they argued, may not have reflected the Browns' actual daily lives. Some even accused the show of staging entire events, introducing props or storylines designed purely for viewer excitement. The Browns, for their part, rarely responded directly to these criticisms, often repeating that their lifestyle was about choices and values, not optics. Discovery, too, remained relatively quiet, insisting the show was entertainment rather than a documentary, leaving the interpretation of real up to viewers. The controversy never seemed to slow the show's momentum. If anything, it only added fuel to its notoriety, drawing more eyes curious to see what was genuine and what might be manufactured. Ultimately, the accusations highlighted a larger debate. Do audiences watch reality television for strict truth, or for the emotions and drama it stirs? In the case of Alaskan Bush People, the latter seemed to win, as millions tuned in season after season, regardless of doubts. The Browns' legacy. When Billy Brown passed away in 2021, the family's story shifted dramatically. The patriarch who had first led them into the bush and onto television was gone, leaving his wife Ami and their 7 children to navigate both grief and survival without his guiding hand. Yet Billy's influence remained visible in how the Browns carried forward. Ami, who had already survived stage 3 lung cancer in 2017, stepped into the role of matriarch with quiet strength, continuing to anchor her children even as she faced widowhood. Her health battles had once united the family against odds, and now her resilience served as a reminder of what survival really meant. Among the children, each has taken a unique path. Noah, often portrayed on the show as the inventive problem solver, settled into family life with his wife Rain, raising their children with a balance of modern conveniences and lessons from his upbringing. Gabe, who embraced fatherhood with enthusiasm, focused on building a private life for his wife and kids, preferring a quieter existence beyond the glare of cameras. Joshua, known as Bam Bam, leaned further into his analytical side, pursuing personal projects in photography and technology while maintaining a long-term relationship with Allison Kagan, a former producer of the show. Snowbird, perhaps the most private of the siblings, stayed close to her mother, reportedly dedicating herself to caring for Ami and maintaining the family's Washington homestead. Rain, the youngest, became both a fan favorite and a lightning rod for controversy as she matured, navigating relationships and public scrutiny while carving out her independence. Bear, true to his king of extreme persona, built a family of his own with Raven Adams and their son River, though not without turbulence and highly publicized legal struggles. Despite the differences in their paths, the Browns remain united by the foundation Billy and Ami instilled: resilience, loyalty, and an enduring belief that family is everything. To fans, their legacy is not one of perfection, but of persistence. Proof that even when faced with loss, illness, and scandal, bonds forged in hardship can endure. Conclusion: can the Browns rise again? The saga of Alaskan Bush People is filled with contradictions. It was a show that promised raw wilderness survival, yet was accused of staging and dramatization. It celebrated fierce independence even as the Browns themselves faced legal troubles over residency and benefits. It showcased resilience while also revealing vulnerabilities: Billy's health decline, Ami's cancer battle, and the personal struggles of their children. These contradictions, however, are precisely what made the Browns relatable. They were never superheroes immune to mistakes. They were a family trying, failing, and surviving under circumstances magnified by fame. The Browns' journey has been marked by tragedy as much as triumph: the devastating loss of their patriarch, the passing of relatives like Amber Branson, the arrests that tested their reputations, and the controversies that invited public doubt. Yet alongside these darker chapters were stories of endurance, recoveries from illness, marriages that blossomed, children born into the next generation, and the steadfastness of Ami as both mother and survivor. Fans often ask if the show will ever return, if Discovery will once again capture the Browns braving wilderness challenges for the screen. But perhaps that question no longer matters. The essence of Alaskan Bush People was never just in its episodes, but in the real-life story of the family behind it. The cameras might not be rolling, but the Browns' lives continue, sometimes painful, sometimes inspiring, always deeply human. They remain symbols of resilience in an age where reality television often sacrifices authenticity for spectacle. Their greatest lesson may not be how to build a cabin from fallen logs or how to hunt in harsh conditions, but how to endure loss, controversy, and the shifting gaze of public opinion while still holding on to one another. In the end, the true treasure of Alaskan Bush People was not the survivalist tricks or the bush lifestyle dramatized for television. It was the Browns themselves, flawed, resilient, unforgettable. A family whose story continues to echo long after the final episode aired.